What is up, Vikings fans? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings postcast, brought to you by Gametime today. The Vikings lose final score, what was it, 34-28 in a game that both did and didn't feel like the score was lying to you. Like it felt like they did both better and worse than the score. I think the easy headline is 4 lost fumbles. Could have been a fifth were it not for a fortuitous offsides penalty. Really, really bad run defense, and everything else actually went pretty well. It was just two things going so extremely bad that they took over the game. But maybe you guys disagree with me. So let's start this the way we always start these Locked On Vikings live postcasts, which of course you can always find at the Locked On Minnesota Sports YouTube channel. And if you miss it, you can still catch it there. You can catch the audio on Locked On Vikings. Sam, what is your headline of the day? Is it one of those two things, or is it maybe something else?
Seeing regression happen before our eyes. We're seeing the fumble recovery luck go all the wrong way. Philadelphia falls on every fumble. The Vikings give it away at very inopportune times. We're seeing the one possession game regression that we all feared. They're now 0-2 in one possession games. The run defense to me is the most disappointing part of the night, even more potentially than the fumbles and the sloppiness early in the game. I just never felt like there was a chance they were going to get a stop in the second half. They could not stop the run. What's the final number? 254 rushing yards, something of the sort, 260 on the ground, and well over 5 yards per carry as well. Really, really disappointing the way that they did start pretty well on defense and then got dismantled as the game went on. Gonna have to see more from that interior defensive line. But Ron, what's your headline?
My headline is 4 turnovers. When you think about the 4 turnovers, I think that's the game. You lose by 6 points, you have 4 turnovers. It felt like the Vikings should have been losing 40-10. Like it just felt like an Eagles blowout at points. And then you look up at the score and you're like, wait, they're still in this. And then in that second half, maybe, and kind of really third quarter, the Eagles kind of started to really take over, and it felt like this is the Eagles that we've seen make it to the Super Bowl. But at the end of the day, the Vikings, I mean, it sucks to say this, but to lose to the Eagles by 6 and have 4, and not like simple, these were crucial turnovers. Like Justin Jefferson's turnover is going to go down in NFL history of maybe the reason why they changed that rule. That to me still is
surely
the dumbest
eventually
rule ever. Like I feel like stardom or star players change the rules in the game. Quarterbacks get hit, they change it. A guy like Aaron Rodgers makes the whole NFL right now want to get grass fields. I think Justin Jefferson's on a national stage to see that happen and be like the Vikings should have been on the 1 yard line at that point and then been able to score. I think that's going to change that rule. But yeah, four huge turnovers. You got Brandon Powell on a big return, fumble. You got Alexander Mattison, fumble. You got Kirk Cousins, strip sack, fumble. And then you got Justin Jefferson, fumble. I mean, it's just it's just one of those things where you just sit back. And then Alexander Mattison fumbles at the end of the game, which thank God there was a offside. So it was just one of those games where you look back and you say, I really can't believe they lost by 6.
There's a couple things too with regard to regression. Fumble luck is a thing, right? The ball is funny shaped and you don't get to predict where it bounces. Every single one of those bounced directly to an Eagle. Like it couldn't have been more of easy fumble recoveries. We can expect that to regress, as much as that is a tough sell for Vikings fans. As much as we heard last year about it'll finally regress. Well, we get to say that on the other side too, right?
True.
But regression doesn't mean if you're 0-7 in fumble luck, you get to be 7-0 in fumble luck. It means you can expect average fumble. You can expect 3-3, 4-4 in fumble luck. And on a grander scale, okay, 0-2 in 1-score games now. That's bad. That means that you did stuff wrong. And as much as I was last year saying, hey, I know they're all close games, but they're winning them and they deserve credit for it. Just because this is a 1-score game, there's part of me that wants to say moral victory. You played the Eagles tough. And there's another part of me that wants to say, screw you. You fumbled 4 times. You don't deserve to win.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that you've gotten these two Cousins performances with the turnover warts, certainly interception last week and then the fumble this week. But you've gotten really strong Kirk play. And generally speaking, you win those games. When Kirk Cousins is that effective, when he's getting the ball to Justin Jefferson the way he is, really hanging in there against pressure that got to him early. And last year he melted under that pressure as the game went on. And this year he seemed to really stand up to it. And I know the Eagles probably weren't bringing everything at him when they were up by 20, but he did continue to pile up yards, even when the Eagles defense was certainly trying a little harder later in that game. So I give him a lot of credit, and to waste, 2 performances with, 350-ish yards both weeks, that's pretty disappointing.
It was a good Kirk game. I think I still need to put the chaos meter in the red just on a vibes thing. It's just it infected everybody else. There's still too much chaos, but it's a chaos meter, not a quality meter. It was a good game.
No, the thing about Kirk Cousins, though, and I agree with Sam on that, Kirk Cousins actually is stepping up in the pocket. He's actually trying to look down the field. And I think that's the key. The one to Jordan Addison last year, maybe not last year. Last year was pretty good. 2 years ago, he probably would have stepped up into the wrong guy, maybe got a little nervous and threw the ball out of bounds or checked it down. He felt like, you know what, if I can just get through this hole, I know Jordan Addison's down there. I know the route concept we have called is going to work, and it's working. Jordan Addison clearly in 2 games to show that first-round pick was worth it. The problem is you have no tackles. Your guards are getting absolutely murdered. The best news, you're not going to have to play the Eagles anymore. And so when you look at Jalen Carter, you look at all those guys. And by the way, that Jalen Carter comment made by the commentators, like, Jalen Carter's a really good guy. I can't believe he slipped to the 9th pick. Oh, yeah, because he's going to jail possibly, and he has, like, convictions, and he has, like, a couple lawsuits. I'm like,
it's really weird.
Why are you doing – it was, like, super weird timing to bring up that he has a couple lawsuits, like, hanging over his head. I'm like, whoa, like I feel like that was like a Key and Peele skit where they're like, this guy it was adopted and he lived on the streets for 7 months, and his parents were like, no, he didn't. We're right here. We lived in Edina. Like, what are you talking about? Like it's just one of those things where the moments of that game. But the defensive line, I don't know if the Vikings will have to face one that good again for a while. Like, I think that was a good test for them, and the test showed you failed. Like, the guys were picking the wrong guys. Oli Udoh was clearly overmatched. Hopefully Christian Darrisaw, it was just he needs the rest, so he'll have another 10 days before they have to come back. But at the end of the day, that Eagles team is good. The Eagles defensive line is good, and the Vikings offensive line needs to work on communication. They also need to watch Lane Johnson. He gets off the ball so early that he's getting a chance to get back. Oli Udoh was getting off the ball a half second late. Josh Sweat was ahead of Oli Udoh on the snap count, which should not happen.
Well, and it might be a moot point with Oli Udoh suffering a knee injury, getting carted off the field, and further depleting that tackle depth. We had David Quessenberry finishing out the game, who I thought did fine.
He looked pretty good.
But next week, as much as it's not the Eagles D-line, I don't think there's anything like the Eagles D-line in the league. You still get Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack coming to town. And with a depleted tackle room. So we'll have to monitor Christian Darrisaw's ankle. He was active for the game, available in, I guess, an emergency situation, but I guess they did not actually play him. Also, Marcus Davenport was active with his ankle thing. He played 1 rep and then didn't play for the rest of the game. So I'm going to imagine that's them throwing him a bone on some kind of contract incentive thing that has to do with starts. But functionally still kind of waiting on his real actual debut. But
I don't know if I've seen that before. I don't know if I've ever seen 2 starters activated to not play. That was different.
Twice. 2 in the same game is a lot, but they did something similar with Riley Reif, who missed a game. He had an incentive tied to playing all of the games, and he missed one with COVID, and they honored it anyways a couple of years ago. And I don't want to belabor the run defense thing too much, because it's just it was just bad. Fix that. But I kind of want to try to figure out why. And that'll be something that I look at a lot this week. I'll probably make a lot of content about that because it's just interesting. But why was it so repetitively bad? What adjustment could have been made? Could there have been an adjustment made? And if so, why wouldn't you make it? My going theory right now is just the front that they were in. They spent a bunch of time in penny fronts with 5 on the line and just Ivan Pace or just one linebacker, whoever it was. And DeAndre Swift just runs away from wherever that linebacker goes to fit. And then suddenly you have like a big bubble and you're waiting for a safety to go fill. You get 5 yards a pop up and down the field, 15, 16 yard plays. I mean, that's nasty. That's just embarrassing. The Eagles did not respect the Vikings calling plays like that. Just calling the same run over and over and over again and saying, well, you can't stop it. And the Vikings didn't earn that respect. So it's hard to be too mad.
Early first quarter looks from Flores have been awesome in both games. I've loved the way the defense has come out in both games. Seems like they've been quickly adjusted on both weeks. And the sample size is so small, it's hard to know exactly what's going on. Baker Mayfield claimed he figured out the signs. This time they just said, you're stifling our pass game, but hey, guess what we've got? We've got a killer run game. We've got a quarterback that can convert every single 3rd and 4th and 1. How frustrating is that? And they've got a deep stable of running backs. I mean, their starter is out, and they've got DeAndre Swift stepping in, Rashad Penny, Boston Scott. Talk about a running back stable, man, and a lot of it between the tackles. Where's Dean Lowry? Where's Jonathan Bullard? Where's Harrison Phillips? Where's Kyrie's Tonga? That was supposed to be the big guy in the middle. I got to see more from these tackles and DNs.
I think they all had bad nights, just getting washed out. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Luke, you made a great point about Brian Flores' attacking defense to start, and I think Sam said that. But your question, and you'll watch it on film, I think we'll all see it this week. What the Eagles figured out was when they are taking gaps, because they drew it on the telestrator, like this guy's coming here, Ivan Pace is coming here, they don't actually really contain or try to stop the run. They're getting skinny to go after the quarterback. Well, if you get skinny to go after the quarterback, I can just push you with your momentum, and then my running back is going to read it. And that's all he started doing. He just started doing like a zone read. Like, hey, when you get the ball, your track is going to be off A, B, or C. So whatever the track was, he followed the track, and then he waited for that guy to get washed out, and he went right to where he wasn't anymore. And at some point, the Vikings have to figure it out. Like when you identify run, you have to either stop and then go back along the line you're on, or you have to stop and collapse. And they weren't collapsing. I think Pete Bursis, I heard him pointed out that Danielle Hunter's, which was actually a pass, but Jalen Hurts got outside of him early. I think that first, the one Josh Metellus got hurt. Same thing. Danielle Hunter has to recognize they're rushing up the middle. I don't need to crash. Jalen Hurts is not going to release or escape us in the middle. He's going to escape us outside. So what do I need to do? I need to keep my outside arm free, and I need to press with my inside arm. He put both arms in and then tried to reach out late, and it's too late. And so the Eagles running backs are smart. Jalen Hurts is technically a running back in that situation, and they're smart. They're going to let you do what you do and then try to counter it, and I think that happened in the second half. Also, to Baker Mayfield, he's lying. He's a liar. Like, there's no way he figured out the signs. Like, there are no defensive signs. What he might have done, which hats off to him, is he's gotten with a coach in Tom Moore who had Peyton Manning, who understands how to teach guys to learn defense. I think he taught Baker Mayfield to realize if there's two high safeties, it's probably cover 2 or 4, Baker. If there's one high safety, it's probably cover 1 or 3, Baker. If there's no safety, it's probably what's that? 0 defensive back. So what does that mean back there? It's 0 coverage. So I honestly just think Baker never had a teacher to teach him some simple stuff. And I saw your video of Josh Metellus playing the piano keys. I think what he's I think what he started to figure out was like, hey, I know their coverages now, so I know what they're going to do. He wasn't picking up. There's no defensive signs to guess a defense. Like, it's just reading the coverage. And he hats off to him. He did it, but he probably should have shut up and just said, hey, I started to figure out what coverage they were in, and it helped me. Like, you didn't steal any signs.
For whatever it's worth, all of the like super visible signs that the Vikings had in the first game, none of it this time. So they changed all of that up. There are a couple of interesting things that could be taken away from this game, though, as we go into a little bit of a half bye, maybe some changes on the depth chart. And I want to ask you guys about it. But first, this Locked On Vikings podcast is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is a place where you can get last minute tickets and you can find great deals. Look, if you're looking to maybe go to the Chargers game, go see Eric Kendricks' homecoming, it's a little late to get a ticket. That might be hard to find a seat, but that is exactly what Gametime is for. They have all kinds of last second flash deals, and they'll give you pictures of those seats. So, I mean, look, there's no bad seats in US Bank Stadium, but it's not just US Bank Stadium. It's concerts, theater, other sports, basketball, baseball, all of that stuff. And you can look at your seat to make sure that you are happy with the view. You can go to Gametime and use gametime.com or download the Gametime app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. And they have a price match guarantee. If you find the same section in the same row, if you find tickets for cheaper, they'll give you 110% of your money back. So once again, that is code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off at the Gametime app. So a couple of things that the chat of this live stream is absolutely cooking right now with people wanting to bench KJ Osborn and Alexander Mattison. KJ Osborn and Addison is really interesting in how they've been splitting time. And it's been interesting since we drafted Addison. Is okay, how is this going to work? Well, Addison breaks loose for a deep touchdown for the second week in a row, and KJ Osborn drops 2. Is that momentum going to be enough for the Vikings to make a major depth chart change, or is that just overreacting in the moment?
I say Minnesota nice. Nice. I don't think they're going to do it. If they do it, maybe week 4 or 5, because that's kind of when Justin Jefferson got his chance. That's when Stephon Diggs kind of late in the season got his chance. I don't know if it's just when you move here, you just become super nice. I truly believe any other organization that drafted Jordan Addison in the first round, and after those 2 performances, and then, like you said, the performance of KJ Osborn, they would start Jordan Addison. I just think the Minnesota Vikings just have a nice kind of feel about their organization. They don't ever want to really feel like anybody's been benched, quote unquote. But I would definitely see, or I hope to see, Jordan Addison's usage go up.
And I think if that happens, it has more to do with Addison than Osborn.
Correct.
We're going to react to a couple drops with some like wholesale change. That's too much of a reaction. But look, man, Jordan, well, maybe you will. But what Jordan Addison has done, I think, deserves more opportunity. I think it has more to do with that. Either way, I'm super hyped on Jordan Addison. I'm very excited to see just how high he can climb as he gets more used to the speed of the NFL.
The one thing I will say before Sam goes, though, is KJ Osborn twice now has floated on that dig route. The one was the interception.
Oh, really?
If he stays tight, if he stays flat or attacks the ball, he makes the catch on that same one going around. I know he didn't want to stay flat because he could probably see that defender coming, but you can't float away from the ball. Just kind of slow down, catch it in that spot. And I hate to say this, I'm going to whisper it, but I can't whisper too low. Adam Thielen used to always come back to that ball and then make sure he had the catch and then kind of fall backwards like this after he caught it. It's a learning experience. We know Adam Thielen has been in the league for 9 years now. So KJ Osborn maybe hasn't had this much like time on the field. He'll learn those little things, but that's something I think Keenan McCardle's probably going to talk to him about, because he's like, look, this is the second time, dude. Now you floated away as the ball is coming, and that time it ended up behind him, which is the reason why he dropped it. If you slow down knowing like, okay, it's in my window, let me just throttle down is what they say. Throttle down, slow your feet, catch it, and then go. And I think that's just he'll learn it. I think maybe it was just going a little too fast. He got a little too excited.
Well, take a look at the workload in week 1. 58 snaps for Osborn, 36 for Addison. I would guess it's somewhat similar tonight. We'll have to wait till tomorrow to get the official numbers on that. We could see a shift more toward equal. But I do think that KJ Osborn has built enough equity over the last 3 seasons to earn a little longer leash than, say, BC Johnson did 3 years ago. KJ Osborn has proven to be a very reliable third down receiver that can make contested catches in tight windows. He's got good hands. We haven't seen that the first 2 weeks, but he's put a lot of it on tape. He's had some opportunities to make some really tough catches in the first 2 games that he has not made, but I think he's shown a track record of making those plays. The drops are bad. That's obvious. Like, there's no excuse for that, and he'll make most of those plays going forward, I would think. But Addison taking the top off the defense 2 straight weeks, I think you're right, Luke. I think it is more about Addison, and I wouldn't be surprised if those reps become a little more equal. And let's face it, they're going to have a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. They're both going to play a ton.
So what about at running back with Alexander Mattison? I personally don't think that the run game woes were on him as much as they were on the blocking. It's hard for me to get a good sense for that, though. Live, it just all moves so fast. I need to slow it down. I don't have that fast an eye, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Is it time to give Chandler more run? Is that the solve for this run game? Is that even going to help?
Ron, what
I
do you
don't think so. I think so, no. I think the offensive line is just not creating any type of like force. Like
Yeah.
every time he touches the ball, somebody's in his lap. Every time he touches the ball, he has to put his foot in the ground. I've never seen him, except for maybe once or twice in the Bucks game, be able to go downhill. It just did not seem like this offensive line has that will to want to run the ball. Like the Eagles, Jason Kelsey, if you watch him, he wants to run the ball. Like he wants to go punch somebody in the mouth. I just don't feel like I think this offensive line is built to pass the ball. I mean, that's what it feels like. I mean, unless Christian Darrisaw's in there, you can run maybe a little bit more left. It doesn't feel like they have the guys. And then when they try to pull last time, he punched the ball out of Kirk's hands. So, I don't know how you create it. You can't run more counters. You can't add. I mean, you could put CJ Ham in and go big and then just tell them you're running the ball, but that's not what Kevin O'Connell wants to do.
Rushing first downs. You see this stat? 19 for Philadelphia. Goose egg for Minnesota.
Disgusting.
Nothing. They got 28 yards on the ground, and I think a lot of that came late when the Eagles were playing pass and the Vikings chose to get like 7 yards on first down a couple times. I mean, it's hard to make any grand judgments on 8 Alexander Mattison rushing attempts. What they attempted to do with them early was absolutely not working.
And the Eagles moved off it. They got behind too, and
game flow impacted that. Eagles defensive line interior is absolutely brutal to block. So I guess I'm not giving up on the run game for the year. Like I'd like to see a more balanced game where they can maybe do a little more. I thought last week was more of the indictment. When last week they did have a chance to run it more and still couldn't do a very good job. But like, didn't they draft Bradbury and Cleveland and O'Neal? Weren't these guys all meant to be the run blockers in the Zimmer scheme, or the Zimmer and the Kubiak
yeah, they were
scheme?
meant to be the finessey zone blockers. But if you're running, something that requires a little more push, that was always going to be something that you struggle with.
The Eagles have maulers in I pointed this out on Twitter, but when they're doing the sneak play, they don't need Hurts doesn't even need the pushers behind him because the line is doing all the work
so hard.
Out like 2 yards of real estate. It's super impressive and makes me jealous.
There's one other thing I want to quick touch on. Also, somebody in the chat gave us the snap count for Osborn and Addison, 56-40 Osborn. So he still did get more snaps there. But
impressive that you have that.
Somebody pulled it up. Yeah, Hoops Talk 69. Thanks, buddy. But so in this game, Josh Metellus got something in his shoulder. He came back later in the game, but while he was out, it wasn't Lewis Cine that came in. It was Theo Jackson, who then goes and gets an interception. So what do we make of all that? There's a lot to unpack there. For one, what does that mean for Lewis Cine? Is it just totally over? Was it like a different position technically? And maybe Cine is more of a backup Bynum while Metellus is the starter with Theo Jackson as his backup? Is that just cope? And by the way, Theo Jackson kind of played pretty well, except he did get smoked over the top on one. But other than that, kind of had a reasonable game. Maybe we just are insanely deep at safety. What sticks out to you guys?
Yeah, I think that from what I saw in camp, Cine didn't really have a settled home. They started him as a deep safety early in camp, and then they started moving him in the box into more of that Metellus role. Because they kind of want these backup safeties all to be able to do all of it, I think. Theo Jackson, though, was very much like apples to apples. He was doing the Metellus stuff all of camp. That was kind of his niche. So it made sense to me that he was the Metellus backup. But just seeing Cine kind of passed over time and time again, it is a little bit concerning, especially when I saw them working him in the box a lot more later in camp. And they must have deemed that Theo Jackson was the better option to do that stuff than Lewis Cine.
Yeah, I just think Lewis Cine has been passed up. I think that's the truth. I think Theo Jackson probably fits in whoever was going out. I think Theo Jackson was the next one. Lewis Cine's going to have to earn his way back. I think he has an opportunity. But as of now, that's the reason why they probably kept 6. They like Lewis Cine on special teams, but they like Theo Jackson to do what he did, which is come in and make a play.
There's so much more to unpack, honestly, about this one. We could talk about Harrison Smith. We could talk more about what Cousins did and all that. And we will do that all week on the Minnesota Football Party with Sam and Ron joining on Thursdays, of course, with me on Locked On Vikings. So for Ron Johnson and Sam Ekstrom, I am Luke Braun. Thank you all so much for hanging out live. And for those of you who listened afterwards, love you just as much. Talk to you all next time after the Chargers game on the Locked On Vikings postcast.